I find it kind of amazing that you're pulling a cord to fire the weapon.
Well, you wouldn't want
pressing a button.
Do you want to press the button on that? Go ahead and rewind and look at that recoil. Tell me you want to hit. Now I know some crazy folks that have done that before.
And did their hands survive?
They still have a hand.
Welcome to the Scuttlebutt. I'm your host, Shaun Hall, the Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. You may notice, if you're watching this on YouTube, that it is just me starting this episode. That is because this week we have a special episode in store for you. We want to do part 2 of our OORAH Inside the Marine Corps conversation. We found that last week's conversation with Josh, Haya, and James was filled with so many rich and interesting stories that we couldn't carry it all in one episode. So we're back this week with a continuation of our discussion about what makes the Marine Corps special. And we won't have our usual segments like our phrase of the week or headlines, but we think the conversation in this episode is pretty interesting. So you'll definitely want to give it a listen. I also want to say a happy belated Veterans Day to all of the veterans, and especially those ones in our network. Thank you for your service, and thank you for my freedom. And to the Vietnam veterans everywhere, welcome home. First, you'll hear some stories in this episode from Josh and James about how brutal it was serving in the desert. They remember sandstorms that caked everything in inches of dust and rainstorms that left all the Marines sopping wet, and it's really intriguing stuff. So I think you'll be very interested in what they have to say. Then we are going to hear from Haya about her experience being a woman in the Marine Corps. She offers her perspective on women serving and the racism she faced, especially down in the South. And James is going to respond with his experience of the racism he experienced down in the South as well. Finally, we'll wrap up with our Scuttlebutt segment this week, which I think is a great one. James will join us to break down a video from airsource.com of Marines with Fox Battery, 2nd Battalion, 11th Marine Regiment firing the M777 155 millimeter howitzer. The video is by Lance Corporal Ashton Buckingham with the 1st Marine Division. If you've looked at James' screen on YouTube, he has one of these howitzers in the background, and we're really excited to break down this video with him on how it's set up, how it fires, hoping that you stick around to check that out. So definitely join us on YouTube to get the full experience for this episode. And also, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you can get alerted whenever our episodes are released every Monday. We hope you enjoy this week's episode. We will be back next week with part 4 of our 6-part series focusing on the military branches. That will be the Army. Hope to see you back for that, but let's dive right in. OORAH, part 2, Marine Corps.
I didn't remember that rainstorm. I wouldn't have remembered that. But when you brought it up, I was like, oh, wow, do I remember that? And I do remember. So it
rained before the sandstorm. That sandstorm was 7 days long. I'll never forget it for as long as I live.
Well, I'm sure you guys did this as well, but we would dig scratches to sleep in at night on the side of the road.
Yep.
And the scratch is like, I don't know, 6 inches. It's basically, it's a little hole in the ground that you can sleep in so that if something explodes, you're just a little bit under the ground.
Right.
And I remember one night, I can't remember if the rain woke me up or if I went to sleep in the rain, but I remember laying down in my scratch and it was raining and I was like, oh, well, and I slept in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I could have done it, but I just fell asleep while I was getting rained on in a dirty hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm. And then you wake up and you're like 6 inches deep in water because it was thick.
And it was such a stupid thing to do. I should have crawled under a truck or something. Like, it's such a dumb thing to do.
A lot of guys slept under trucks.
Yeah, that would have been a smart thing.
Well, and the funny part is for the field artillery meteorologists, everything we do is in our trucks. Our air tanks are in our trucks. We work out of our trucks. Our technology is in the back of the trucks. So we literally sleep in our trucks. Like we just, hey, this little space here, that'll work just fine. We'll just sleep in that. And man, I was watching people sleeping in those holes because the rain, we didn't know it was coming. Like it was clear, it was just hot. It's the desert. And then all of a sudden you wake up and it sounds like it sounded like a hurricane. It was a torrential downpour. And then the next morning you wake up and you can't see your hand in front of your face. And you're like, man, this sucks.
I would think a rainstorm comes in, it condenses all the sand and makes it mud, but then how did a sandstorm follow that?
Because they have it was almost like a front.
Okay.
And if you ever look at weather patterns like those huge sandstorms that come from the Sahara,
Mhm.
and the dirt from it reaches all the way on the next continent over,
Yeah.
that's how strong, that's how hard those winds pick up those sand particles and keep them in the air.
Mhm.
And like we said, it's not like, what was it? There was a documentary where it was talking about how the Sahara sands travel over. These particles were so fine that it was almost like throwing powdered sugar into the back of a blow dryer. It just was everywhere. And so you really genuinely couldn't see this. So the rain went first, and then the sandstorm hit. And I remember that, was it 7 or 8 lines of Met? So we're talking 5,000 feet, 5,000 meters above the surface was 40 plus mile an hour winds and nothing but sand. And the minute it crest over the top of it,
Mhm.
clear regular skies, regular wind speeds and the whole 9 yards. But that was carrying sand from a while ago.
Wow.
It's just, and it was a drop in temperature. So it was basically a front, or if you ever go and look online for, I think they call it a habu, whatever it is, where you see the dust clouds coming in Arizona, where it's like, it's about to engulf the whole entire town. That's what it was.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah. When I was reading Generation Kill, they were talking about just getting caked with sand, like in your eyes, and it's just like everybody's eyes were red, and running, and your nose, and just everything. Just you got.
And it was
all of it.
I think it even showed it in Generation Kill how that fine film that was on their face. Now imagine that in your electronics. Imagine that in your air filters. Imagine it's everywhere.
I would never want to go to a beach again.
And then add on top of that, I don't know about you, Josh, but we didn't have a shower for like 3 months.
I remember showering when I got to Baghdad, so it might have been closer to 6 weeks for me.
Yeah, we didn't have one for 3 months, and I'll never forget that event. That was probably one of my favorite times for my nostrils ever.
Well, and also no means of, or at least we didn't have any means of washing our clothes. So
no. You had to take. We had to take those artillery shell cases, the hard metal ones for like the powder things, and throw water in it and just soak and rinse and then wring out, and that was it. The no shower thing was fun though. You don't realize how far you can go and not smell yourself.
I tell people that thank God I was a young man, because I would.
Oh yeah.
I'd be like, I'm leaving. I'm gonna find my way out of this.
Done.
I wouldn't have put up with it now.
Yeah, I'll walk. I'm glad I did it when I was young. The things I'll put up with now just ain't it.
What smells worse, a truck full of Marines who haven't bathed in 6 weeks, or a group of kids?
Now hold on, see, and there's the trick of that point, and Josh can attest to this. After so long, you don't smell yourself.
Yeah, it goes away.
It goes away.
I guess it just normalizes.
It normalizes. It's not until you hit that new peak. You have to hit that new. So it's like after about 6 weeks, all of a sudden this new era of funk comes in, and it's like, whoa, man, you really need to fix that. And then you get used to that one too, and then you hit the next level and you get used to it. And I remember that we've gotten so used to each other's smells that it was like, we could not shower for the rest of our lives and it wouldn't matter at this point. And they brought in these shower tents. So it was basically the CP tents with all the piping through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who the first person was to take a shower. I cannot tell you to this day, but I know exactly what they used to shower with. It was the Suave Strawberry Fields. And you could smell it from a mile away. And the worst part is, and Haya, I'm so sorry. I know that you're sitting right here.
Position.
No, it gave away your position. We haven't seen anything of the other human species in months. We haven't smelled anything to even smell remotely like home cooking, like something pretty, something. All we smelled was sand, dust, and funk. When we smelled Strawberry Fields, I remember there was 5 of us in the back of a truck, and we looked and said, what is that? Like when somebody who has like a really good fragrance of Victoria's Secrets walks past you, but the person was like 5 football fields away, and you were like, what is this? Like a bunch of hunting dogs, just like, what is this madness? Never forget it as long as I live.
boy, there's this camaraderie and this this thing about the Marines that's so special. But there's also this side piece that needs to get better and is growing. I love bringing in your perspective, Haya, and us being able to chat about that progression through the Marine Corps.
And this is really my opinion. I haven't heard anyone else say it because we really don't discuss it. But if you're serving in a southern state on a military installation, it's different. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's from North Carolina. I was stationed in North Carolina, and the most racism I experienced was from the units I was stationed at in North Carolina. I was stationed other places, South Carolina as well, but the southern states military bases, I think at least when I was in, they were allowed to.
They took it.
They did not check themselves, and they did not have anyone that was checking them.
Well, it was almost like they didn't have a filter. So
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you say that because it's part of the reason I want to move down there. Because I told my wife, I told her godmother one time, I was like, they were like, well, where would you go when my wife retires? I was like, down in North Carolina. And they're like, why? I was like, one, the weather's nice. I'd be close to the military base when my Tri-Care Prime strikes up. That's dope. But I was like, I like the racism down there. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, I fucking love it. And they're like, why? I was like, because at least there, I knew where I stood, no matter where I went. If I was at the wrong gas station, I knew it. It only took about 10 seconds for me to figure it out. Because the filters there are not there. We back down south. We below the Mason-Dixon. And a lot of people down south will tell you the Mason-Dixon falls around Richmond, Virginia. They still consider anything above Richmond north. Once you hit down where there's no more cities and ain't nothing but trees, swamps, and red clay, it's a whole different ball game down there. I experienced it while I was down there in North Carolina. The units, even out in town had it. But I come back up here and it's a lot more silent. I know it's here.
Yes.
I know where to find it. It's just, it takes a lot of encouragement for somebody to come out of their skin to say it, where, I had shotguns pulled on me in the wrong gas station. I had units where I actually got in trouble. I was the lead for one of my MET teams, and we had to provide meteorological data to the artillery units, so this way they could adjust the guns. And the lieutenant there was like, yeah, I don't want the, you're still recording, so I can't say exactly what he said, and took my piece of paper, balled it up, threw it on the ground, and threw a knife through it. I was like, you know what, dog, I'm good, and you can kiss my ass. And I left, and my chief warrant officer cussed me out. Same one that was mentoring me cussed me out. He's like, you can't let them win. So when you go down there in North Carolina, it was interesting. It was definitely an eye-opener, not just as a young man, but then you have that, then you have Marine Corps mentality, and then you have this blanket of racism that punches you in the face like the heat does. Like, it was, all right, okay.
And joining us is James Martin. James, thank you so much for joining us for our Scuttlebutt reaction video. This is a first. We're hoping to do more of these. But I've been so excited to talk with you about the Howitzer ever since seeing it in your background and knowing that you fired one of these weapons. I was hoping you could set the scene for us a bit as we dive into this air source video. Where is this taking place?
By the looks of it, looks like 29 Palms. And the fun part about 29 Palms is, if I could set the scene for you, would be there's a national park not too far away from there. It's called Joshua Tree. And there's nothing out there. It's a whole lot of desert, a whole lot of mountain, and a whole lot of hot for no reason. So a lot of times Marines will go out there, no matter where they're at in the world, they'll go out there to do larger training missions that they can't do on a military installation. I think it was like 900 small ball square miles of nothing but desert that we could blow up things in. Yeah. So where if we're on, let's say, Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton, our ranges are really small. We don't get the ability to shoot the larger charges, the sexier rounds, and things like that. So with that, we go out to 29 Palms usually for 3 weeks to 2 months, and we do a lot of the things that we just can't get away with doing in a smaller unit for the reasons of safety.
Okay.
The safety being the primary reason. We can't go around just shooting 18 miles off a base and hope that it doesn't hit some poor guy's farm in North Carolina.
And that's how far these normally shoot, is about 18 miles.
We
That's
can
sort
go.
of their
We can
range?
go. We can go a ways. We can go
Okay.
a long ways with it.
Yeah.
So so we go out to 29 Palms, especially for maybe once a year if a unit is doing workups for a deployment, they're guaranteed to go there every time. So this is where we get to do the more fun things. So
Right.
I'm ready.
Awesome. And so this seems like a truck is pulling the howitzer out to the what would you call it? The zone? Is it the landing zone? The ground zero? Like, what is that spot where the howitzer drops?
They're going to take it out to the gun line. We have a designated area that says, hey, I need the guns lined up here in this direction, and go.
Go do.
go do. Drive and get there and set up. So
So they may have already got to that spot here. They're all unloading, it seems.
they are definitely in that spot. So that is the 777 howitzer. This next truck pulling up is the gun truck. Has all the powders and shells and everything. So right here, the gun has now come off the truck. The truck has said, okay, I'm into my spot. The gun crew comes off. Yep, we're here. And they unhook this ginormous cannon off the back of the truck, and they're just sitting there floating it because it actually comes on two wheels. It's a self-towed.
Yeah.
It's a towed a towed gun. So as it's sitting there on its wheels, as long as everybody holds it, it's almost like
a teeter-totter.
It's almost like a teeter-totter. So as long as everybody's got it in the right places, it balances rather well, enough for you to be able to adjust onto a point that we designate to say, hey, I need the gun right here. And that point is so this way I know that when you drop that weapon, that within tick that's on a deer's right cheek, I know exactly where that tick is, and that means that the howitser's within this of that tick,
millimeters,
and within millimeters, within centimeters, within inches of that spot. And that matters because of when you start shooting a distance, for every meter, for every kilometer that you fire, and let's say it's a straight line from point A to point B, if my point B is here and my point A is slightly off, when I go to shoot, I'm slightly off. Now, that may only mean but so much considering what the round can do itself at a small range. But if I shoot at a distance, that gap becomes much, much larger. And those
much more dangerous.
Much more dangerous. And so what they're doing right here is all in a practice to make sure that they are on point as much as possible. And we can go in there and adjust in the computer, okay, so he wasn't dead on. We can relook at it and say, hey, he's off by, this by this by this. So his actual location is here. And like my hand movement is not that much, like, okay, he's centered here. And that accounts for the accuracy.
And that's measured in degrees, minutes, seconds.
Yeah, it could be degrees, minutes, seconds, or off of a 10-digit grid, MGLR or something. I can't remember the exact what it is, but it's pretty much to put you right on that guy's boot.
So this pull on the ground, is that to help positioning?
Help positioning.
Okay. Continue on. That seems pretty heavy. Are those guys? It's like, how heavy is the gun?
Oh, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but if you give this Marine a second, he will get back to you with the weight. But it's literally in balance. It's the metals that they use make it relatively light, so it's not as bad as it looks. But I mean,
you don't need the Rock and Stone Cold to hold the end of it.
Right. I don't need the Rock, Stone Cold. New World Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be all right. They'll be okay. Kevin Nash up there like, I got it.
Yeah. He just All right, so these are the back two legs of the howitzer,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep, the last two spades to go get dug in the ground, and they're flipped up whenever the weapon's in tow. So right now they're just trying to find that point and be able to drop that cannon on that point. And once they drop it, they're gonna flip those legs down and dig them into the ground, because we're firing a cannon that launches 100-pound rounds relatively with relatively no effort, but there's a level of recoil. And
I stumble when I throw a baseball. This is gonna
yeah,
rock it. Yeah.
this is throwing out a 100-pound round at at a rather efficient speed.
Mhm.
So it needs to be, once it hits the ground, you'll see it just sits on the ground.
Yeah.
But you dig in those spades to be able to take the brunt of that, to help take the force off that cannon, so this way it shoots more accurately.
When you say drops, like when it comes down off the wheels, is it lowered or is it just dropped?
Nope. There's a part in when they're taking down the next howitzer, you'll watch when they drop it. So this one here, they're just putting it over the spot. There's a guy sitting up there looking through a telescope going, okay, are we where we need to be? Da, 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 da.
This guy
And
up here.
Yep,
Okay.
and they're just rocking. And see, on this one, they already put it down. On the other one, you'll see that you'll watch it come down real nice and smooth.
Okay. Here's, like you said, the sort of...
The legs came down, yep.
And this gentleman, he's looking through to make sure that you're still in the right position. That's the telescope you're talking about?
I think the one that he's looking at is making sure that he is pointing in the right direction to the way that I want him to point.
Okay.
I want you to look that way.
Right.
So whenever they drop it and they put it down, they're like, okay, I'm looking, I'll place something to say, this is the direction I want you to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get there, they're going to look through, and it's looking straight down the bore sight and saying, yep, and now I'm on.
I'm going to take a step back real quick. And what was your role in this sort of organized chaos that's sort of happening?
So my job actually was not with this. I helped plan what we needed to plan. I knew where we were going. And so we did our best to say, okay, we need our howitzers here to be able to do what we need to do. The sexy part about this weapon is, when done right, this weapon can be used 360 degrees. So I need these in these locations. These are our approximate points, and then I would produce safety for them. So this way, whenever we fire, we knew where we couldn't shoot, what we could shoot, areas that we couldn't, whatever dark areas that we couldn't fire over. And be able to make a strategic plan from there. Now, once that plan is made, the commander will go through and say, okay, well, we're going to go over here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. This is where my gun line is, and go.
Okay. All right, so we're setting this up. He's not doing a really good job of digging.
Nah, he's pitsing at it right now, and the only reason why is because they haven't really gotten where they need to get to.
Okay.
So the hole is kind of prepped, and he's just like, okay, we still got to go over a few more inches. Let me go ahead and just knock away at this, because we're in the middle of the desert. That desert is hot. That dirt don't want to move. There's rocks up underneath there. So whatever little prep work to make his life easy, once they say we're going right here, do it. It may not look like much, but he's like, I'm just waiting.
He's getting antsy.
Yeah, he's getting antsy. He's like, I know I got to dig. Just come on, hurry up, get it right.
and as we see, these guys, they start loading and firing this thing at a very fast rate coming up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If there's some downtime or some slow time setting this up, like, they're ready to work.
Yeah, no, and like I said, this here's in training, and so here we're stressing, get it right. Of course you have to have a level of speed on you, but make sure that you're on point of the things you need to do, because in theater, in country, if we're ever moving like that, once I tell you, hey, look, we need to lay this down and get the fire in, it's not a joke anymore. It's like, hey, I know that spot. Great. You got your location. Outstanding. What's your turnaround time? And I've had crews that have had 7-second turnarounds firing and maybe needed 10-20 seconds to get right.
Oh, wow.
So like, this was not this is not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of that is in the coordination, that organized chaos. So you're like, there's a whole lot of trucks going on here. Yeah, but I trust that driver to line that gun up right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So this way, that's less that somebody has to do on the back end. So if the truck goes in the right direction, now the gun's in relatively the right direction. The better the truck driver is at dropping the truck, great. Weapon, outstanding. Then they drop it and say, oh man, we're right over the spot. Drop it. Okay, oh man, there's the point. We're on it. Got it. Start hooking it up, digging the whole 9 yards. And while they're doing that, and they're like, hey, we're on location. Outstanding. I can already input.
Mm-hmm.
And if I already have a mission coming down the pipe, I'm starting to get each gun up. Boom, boom. Okay, yep, that one's on. That one's on. Okay, make the correction to this one. This one's on. Da-da-da. And so I was more of the brains of the operation. This is the muscle behind
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it.
And every second can save lives at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You hear him go, check, check, check.
Yep.
Verified.
Now, what
so
is
now
cranking there?
He's cranking up. So if the video was zoomed out as he's cranking, he's either moving the weapon sideways,
mm-hmm.
or he's angling up.
Okay. I would imagine
it's actually going to the side. Actually, you can see it.
You can see
the teeth on the gears at the bottom. There's right there in the shadows. You see little teeth. And you see it going
right here.
And we don't use degrees. We don't use 360 degrees. We use mils. It's a lot more accurate. Even Napoleon wrote about it, using a different system of measurement, because we used to say, what's a mil between friends? We don't use degrees, we use mils. I think it's like 17.7 mils in 1 degree. So that's how tight we were in those spaces. Which makes it,
when you say a tick on a deer's butt,
we weren't even our measurements were down to that minute of a detail, because when you're tossing, as a phrase that my friend always says, warheads on foreheads, you can't afford to miss. You can't afford to be inaccurate, because there's been times where we'll get fire missions and somebody's trapped in a building and they're being overwhelmed by fire. They're stuck in this corner of this room. They have no way to breathe. And when you look at the distance between houses, that's sometimes all we had. Or the distance from, hey, this guy's literally across the street. And when you think of a street, that's not that far. When you're talking about a round that has 50-meter kill radius and like 100 meters on top of that blast radius, damage radius, I can't afford to miss when you're talking danger close. When you say danger close and we're within 100, hey, Godspeed, because this thing's coming. And just keep your head down. You're going to hear it. Yeah. Actually, he won't hear it, but whoever's that close ain't going to hear it, but it's coming.
And this is the ammo truck?
Yep. Giant placards on the side for explosives. Can't go through tunnels. Sucks.
So two questions here. First is, these trucks have to be the ones that are very well protected, because if they were to be fired upon, that can cause mass chaos, I would assume. And the second question we'll get to is, we just heard you and Josh talk about the sand that was caked on everything. And I'm interested to hear how that affected the howitzers and how often they needed to be cleaned while over there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Cleaning is paramount regardless, because you don't want anything to really, it's almost like weapons. If you take your pistol out to the range, or you go shoot your shotgun in somebody's yard and it's dusty, you're going to want to keep that thing clean, because it's going to wear and tear on the bore, wear and tear on the weapon, wear and tear on the slides, all your different parts and mechanics that makes this thing function. So don't get it twisted. This is a very large weapon, but it's still a, you know, just a very large single shot. It's a very long range reaching rifle at
Right.
this point. And so the operations of keeping it clean is not after every round.
Oh, wow.
You're swabbing the bore after every, because your simple 5.56 round has a little bit of black powder in it, has a little bit of gunpowder.
Mhm.
You'll see the size of the canisters of powder we're using, and yeah, she leaves a little bit of dust behind. I don't know why.
Right.
I can't figure it out. And so, the weapons cleaning was always paramount. And then the armament of the vehicle itself. This is the same vehicle that if there's no ammo in it, it'd be people in the back of it.
Okay.
So it'd be all right.
Yeah. Pulling in here.
Mm-hmm. Get me right where I want it.
So
All those guns.
yeah. So is this an entire? What would you call this?
That'd be a firing battery. It'd be a
Firing battery.
Yep.
Okay.
6 guns. 6 guns in an awful lot of trucks.
And this here in the foreground, is that a telescope as well?
Tell them the gun line.
Yep. How many people are actually in a gun line?
On a skeleton crew, you could run the howitzer with like 6, so each gun times 6, 36. Ammo guy. I mean, we could run it with maybe about 75 people ish,
Okay.
and that's the whole unit,
Okay.
not just off because the gun line is important, but it can't function without. There's three parts of artillery. Anybody will tell you. There's the muscle, those guys, the fire direction control, or as they like to call it, fat dudes eating donuts, or fat dudes sipping coffee. We're the brains of the operation, and then whoever's out forward of that are our forward observers. Those are the eyes. You need all three in order to fire.
Forward observers, are those recon Marines?
They can be.
Okay.
We can teach them how to do forward observation to call for fire.
Okay.
We can do that for supply guys, docs, doesn't matter. Whoever's going to be forward of us, we can teach them what we need from you for us to be able to provide you, quality customer support.
These are the guys at customer support. These are the guys that hear or feel the round going over them toward the target.
Unless you're too close, and then you're just gonna know that it happened.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll hear that whistle. It's yep. There's one trail coming in, and they're making sure that it's down, digging the hole for it so they can throw it in the hole. Okay, here's the one I was talking about where you watch it come down. So they're doing the teeter-totter thing. There's a guy holding around. Now watch. Nice and smooth once he gets it on a point. They verify it. Drop.
Oh, wow.
And it's down. Now you see how everybody's losing their mind. They're like, oh, where's the shovel? Hurry up. We got to hurry up, throw down the trails. Yeah, I'm just sitting there going, and if y'all don't hurry up. Wheels come up.
Now, it seems like they drop the legs, they pick them back up. Is that just for positioning?
To reposition.
Okay.
Or they'll throw it down and mark the spot where the trails are going to be, so they can go, yep, here it is, boom. So now I know where to dig.
Okay.
See, yep, here he comes. Dig away, my friend. Dig away. No. See what one? Yep. Boom. It looks like they're packing up to leave or move the gun all over again because they went to a bad location. See how that thing is coming up ever so slightly? Like that's those wheels moving.
Yeah.
They're getting the right azimuth.
And what's this guy doing over here on the right?
Ensuring that they're in line with everybody else.
Okay. And this antenna, is that specifically for radio communication? Yeah.
Comms.
As for your job, like I'm looking at the sky, I'm seeing like it's a pretty it's not super overcast, but there's a lot of sky in this part of the, in 29 Palms. So you're looking at that. You're looking at what are the weather patterns of what they're going to be firing into. And with a 100-pound round, how much does the wind really affect that round? Is it just based on distance, and how heavy the wind is blowing?
So here where we're at right now, we're supposed to have like wind gusts to like 15 miles an hour. That's on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
If I put you on top of the U.S. Steel building, you're sitting on the thing, that 15-mile-an-hour wind just turned into 30.
Okay.
If I'm shooting just below where a plane takes flight,
Mm-hmm.
the wind speeds at that height are magnificent. We're talking 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100-mile-an-hour winds
Mm-hmm.
at height. And so that right there does take its toll. And then time of flight matters, because how long it's sitting in the air, the earth is slowly rotating.
Mm-hmm.
So my position is changing. So it's almost like throwing a curveball.
Okay.
You're aiming for where you want the round to go to, and then you make those adjustments, the same thing as you would on the rifle range. If
Mm-hmm.
you go and shoot your I don't know if you have any long rifles or a hunting rifle,
Mm-hmm.
but if you start shooting at a distance, you want to know which way the wind's blowing, so this way you can adjust or make corrections on your sight. Okay, I have a full value wind, I need to click 3 inches, so this way my sight moves.
Mm-hmm.
This means that your weapon actually, when you're sighting in, you actually moved your weapon off to the side. Or, it's raining, which is putting force down, I need to aim up just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Those little bit of Kentucky windages, we take the Kentucky out of it
Mm-hmm.
and put it to an actual science.
Wow. I would think that would make a game with paper football with you quite interesting.
It does make it a little fun. It makes it a lot more fun because in my head I think about it, but most games don't think about it at all.
Right. A lot of what these guys are shouting, we can't fully discern it, but can you help us?
They're shouting commands. They're telling each other what they're doing. So this way, because one person's doing one thing doesn't mean that other things can't happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is double checked. You're never going to do anything when it comes to the actual operations without a second set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is always in twos. Hey, I'm on point. Hey, I'm late on whatever. Verified. Somebody else comes, looks down the site, looks at your readings. Yep, verified.
Mm-hmm.
Send it up to this person. Hey, I got these numbers. Put it in the computer. Hey, all right, these numbers, let me see them. All right, verified.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is in steps of two. So as they're yelling commands, it's to make sure that the other person knows what he's doing
Mm-hmm.
while the other things are going on.
Okay.
Always checks and balances.
So now we're moving into actual
Yes,
firing.
Okay, so that little piece of brass you see, that's the tail end of the round, and they are shoving it in the tube.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Now, is that a live round, or is that a yeah? Okay. Here we go.
And that big metal piece you saw was the breech, comes down,
Mm-hmm.
and then he sits there and he grabs the lanyard. Once the mission is described, everything's verified. All right, so the round's loaded. He's putting in the thing. Somebody looks at him when he goes to pull that lanyard. Hey, ready to fire. So there, watch this. Here goes the session.
That guy with the canister, he's putting the powder in?
Putting the powder in.
Okay.
Verified. Close breech. Verifying he's where he needs to be. Verified. Points at the guy, grabs lanyard, fire.
Mm-hmm. I find it kind of amazing that you're pulling a cord to fire the weapon.
Well, you wouldn't want
pressing a button.
Do you want to press the button on that? Go ahead and rewind and look at that recoil. Tell me you want to hit that lanyard is attached to the breech, which is attached to that barrel that just went slamming backwards. So that means when you hit it, that thing's coming back.
Right.
Now I know some crazy folks that have done that before.
And did their hands survive?
They still have a hand. They were really good at it.
Yeah. Now this I find interesting, as opposed to like we'll see him put the canister powder right into the barrel. But the round they put on this mechanism that loads the bullet
like a sled. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that loads it in, and then they have this enormous rod that pushes the round up the barrel. How does it stay where it needs to stay once they force it up there?
It has grooves, almost like you would it has the way to hold it right where it needs to be. So
Canister.
it's in there. You heard it hit.
Yep.
Canister.
That looks heavy.
They're not light.
How heavy is he? 100
about
pounds?
100 pounds.
Okay.
Each
and
and
that
every
guy's
one
whole job is to run back and forth and pick up 100-pound rounds. I don't know if I'd want that job. Like,
hey, you got to start somewhere.
It's true.
It's almost like McDonald's. You have to start on the fries and then work on the grill. Then make it over there to make the burgers. You got to go through everything to be able to work the whole kitchen.
I was gonna say I want to be the guy that pulls the cord. Like that's.
Yeah, no. He had to pick up the rounds too.
Yeah. And you do see everybody holding their ears. These are pretty loud, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Here's that canister.
There's that canister, and then he grabs the powders. He said 2 verified, throws them in there.
Whenever he pulled that latch, did that lock the barrel? Okay.
See, and then if you rewind it just a second, you'll see that everything got put in there real nice and tight. You'll see this shoved in there.
Yeah.
And then it's good. And that's the clear sight right through the tube.
What did he just yell?
I missed it. Stand by. Yep. Boom. Yeah, go ahead and slap that. I dare you. Triple dog dare you. People come up missing a whole hand. Talk about.
That's a good angle.
Yeah.
That.
Boom. It's in there.
How hot is it? How hot is it in that spot where he's putting that canister?
It's a little toasty.
Yeah.
It's a little toasty.
I just realized that the heat from that friction from that round going off.
And that's a whole lot of powder sitting behind it as it goes off. It is not a joke.
And I didn't see him wearing a glove.
He'll be all right.
He'll be all right. Oh no, he's wearing gloves.
Hooks up.
I heard a woo. That was.
Yep.
Here's the mechanism. This is a good close-up of that.
Yeah. Throw it on there. Shove.
Now see, I've seen him use this beige canister, but I've also seen him put in a green, just the green canister.
Because each one is a different charge, different weight, and how far it's going to throw that round. That one right there, usually those are the big boys, the ones that we call your larger shells, your larger charges that end up whenever you fire it. If you ever had a slow motion camera, which I still pay money for, that if you put it on the ground on a very small tripod where it sees the ground, when that thing fires, you'll watch the dirt come off. Like everything start to levitate.
The Hurt Locker did a lot of that. The movie, The Hurt Locker, when the explosions would happen, it would show the slow motion of the rocks, just like levitating because of the recoil vibration.
The sheer force of. See all that dust and dirt, all that just came off the ground. If you could slow motion that, I promise you'll watch everything just
lift. And we talked a little bit, we're going to see it here in a second, is that recoil and why they are dug in, the legs are dug in the back, how much it's actually rocked the cannon back.
Even in that one, you can see how far back they are, and you can see dust coming off the ground. So that steam you just saw, that was him swabbing out that was him cleaning the weapon.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
And that's why you saw steam. So
I see that. Yeah.
Whoop, they'll clean it, lube it back up, all in the same shot, and then Reload it. Verify 2 powders. Yep, shove it in there. Load and go to work.
Here's the
Every
here's the
time.
recoil.
Yeah, here it is. Ooh.
And there we are.
Man, so much fun.
How many rounds can a unit fire off in a given time span? Those guys are working reload, fire, reload, fire, reload, fire, and that all is dependent upon the orders coming down. But if they had to, let's say we're going to lay fire for an hour, how many rounds do you think can be shot off in that time frame?
It really just depends on needs.
Okay.
And I really say that in all honesty. We had a situation in my first deployment, and I think my CO was really pissed. He was a very angry man, and we loved him so much. There's actually, I think there's an article written about it somewhere, and I think it's a book called Charlie Battery. And we were in non-Ozaria. We were just outside the city, so this is them finding out the ambush alley, the Miss Lynch who got captured. This is that whole city there. And we're just outside the city. There's a train station that runs in between where we were and the city itself. And all of a sudden, one unit just off to our shoulder said, "Hey, the train station's live." We're like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Well, the enemy just showed up with gas mask, suits to be able to take chemical warfare, and
Mop
they got
suits.
they got mop suits, and it looks like they got chemicals on them. They're like maybe 1,000. They're like 1,000 meters away from you." We're like, "Oh, okay." So I'm in the back of a truck, and all of a sudden I look over and I hear this fire mission, and we hear it because we're on the radio and we know our location. So they tell the location of the target number, location, blah, 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 blah. And we're looking at it going, that's awfully close.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it on a pin, we go break out a map and go, wow, as they're processing the mission. And we're like, oh, that's the train station.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're about to fire on the train station. This ought to be fun. And all of a sudden the CO yells, "Get those blah, blah, blobs," as he's firing his pistol in the air. And I realized that our fire mission, because we had not just a battery, so a battery 6, we had a battalion 6 times 3. We had 18 guns. He called for a battalion of 10 on this location.
Wow.
Using a certain round that shoots out 88 bomblets per round on this train station. It was the most glorious sound I've ever heard of in my life, because all 18 guns went off like a machine gun. So all you heard was, and they would do it again. And some of the guns had 7-second turnarounds. And what I mean by 7-second turnaround is 7 seconds from the time they fired to their firing again. Each gun, 10 rounds, times 88 bomblets, times 16 guns. There wasn't much of a train station left after we got done.
No, that's bringing some major fire.
Yeah, it was like that was warheads on foreheads. And when they went to do a battle damage assessment, they were actually coming with chemical weapons.
Wow.
So that was just one mission for that day in an 8-day sandstorm that we've been firing into a city day in and day out because they needed the support. So how many they can fire, that's really up to the needs of until something changes.
Incredible. Well, oh man, I'm so glad we decided to break that down. Hopefully our viewers are going to tune in and check that out. And hopefully we get another video that you were in charge of. It's different things that you were doing. We'd love to break down more with you, because that certainly was really, really interesting.
I love every second of it. That's the stuff I miss right there. It's not, the people to your left and your right was fun, but the job had so much involved that it was very technically proficient. It was very science and math and a lot of things that people just don't think about. And it's, and then the history behind just being the king of battle.
Yeah. Well, that does it for our part 2 of Marine Corps' incredible. I think we covered so much over the course of 2 episodes, and we'll definitely come back to the Marine Corps. There's much more for us to dive into. But again, if you're watching, please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. We will be back next week for our part 4 of the 6-part series, this time focusing on the Army. I hope you come back and join us for that. James, thank you as always.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We'll see you all soon.